Rain hammered the windshield like angry fists as my headlights sliced through the downpour on the Kennedy Expressway. Ahead, an SUV spun wildly out of control, slammed into the guardrail, and flipped onto its roof with a sickening crunch of metal. Without a second thought, I yanked my wheel to the shoulder, grabbed the medical kit from my passenger seat, and sprinted toward the wreck. Flames were already licking at the crumpled hood, and inside I could see her bloodied face pressed against the shattered window, a woman I had not seen in 5 years, but whose name still haunted my quiet nights. Cadence. I smashed the remaining glass with my elbow, reached in and unbuckled her. She groaned, eyes fluttering open for a split second. Harmony, she whispered my name like a prayer before slipping back under. Smoke choked the air, but I hauled her free just as the gas tank ignited in a roaring whoosh that lit up the night. Sirens wailed in the distance, but I cradled her against my chest, checking for broken bones, pulse steady but weak. In the ambulance, she woke again, gripping my hand. The meeting tonight, I have to be there. They're waiting to force me into that sham. Come with me, Harmony, please. I stared at her, the woman who had shattered my heart years ago, when her father's threats made her choose family fortune over us. Now here she was, battered but still commanding the room even from a gurney. At the hospital they patched her up fast, concussion stitches, bruised ribs, but she refused to stay. My driver is waiting, she said, pulling on a fresh blouse the staff had brought. This is my company, my life, and tonight I end it all. I should have walked away right then, but something in her eyes, the same fire that once drew me and pulled me along. We rode in silence through the glittering Chicago streets, her hand never leaving mine. At the towering glass headquarters of Vanguard Capital, the boardroom buzzed with hundreds of shareholders, suits and pearls, expensive cologne thick in the air. Cadence walked in head high despite the limp, leaning on me for support. The chairman smiled, expecting the announcement of her engagement to some suitable man from a rival firm. Instead, Cadence stepped to the microphone, voice steady and clear. Before we discuss mergers, I want you all to meet the most important person in my life. This is Harmony, my wife. The room erupted in gasps, flashes popped, board members froze, and I stood there, heart pounding, as every eye turned to me. The ordinary, our nurse, suddenly thrust into a world of power and secrets I thought I had escaped forever. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wildfire, some faces shocked, others calculating the implications for stock prices and alliances. Cadence's mother rose from the front row, her perfectly coiffed silver hair catching the light, eyes blazing with fury. What is the meaning of this? She hissed later in the private lounge after Cadence had fielded questions with calm defiance. You cannot throw away everything we built for some nurse from the wrong side of town. Cadence stood taller despite the pain, wincing as she turned to me. Mother, this is not a whim. Harmony saved my life tonight, and she saved me years ago when I was too afraid to live honestly. I felt the old wound reopen, the memory of our stolen weekends in hidden cabins, the way her laugh had made me forget the weight of expectations. But back then her father had discovered us, cornered her with threats of disinheritance and public shame. She had chosen silence, and I had walked away with a broken heart, vowing never to love someone who could not choose me fully. Now in this opulent lounge with crystal glasses and leather chairs, the choice was being forced into the open. I pulled Cadence aside, my voice low and urgent. You didn't ask me, Cadence. You just declared it in front of the world. What if I don't want this spotlight? What if my family finds out? She cupped my face, her thumb brushing a stray tear I hadn't realized had fallen. I know I blindsided you, Harmony, but in that wreck, when I thought I was dying, all I could think of was you, the one person who ever saw the real me. I couldn't go through with marrying him, not when you appeared like fate itself. The moral weight pressed on me. Was this right, claiming her after years apart, or was I enabling a desperate escape that could destroy us both? Her board members cornered us next, demanding explanations about stability and public image, one even suggesting a quiet retraction for the sake of the merger. Cadence refused, her jaw set in that stubborn line I remembered so well. This is who I am, she told them, and if you cannot accept it, then perhaps it's time for new leadership. That night in her penthouse overlooking the lake, we sat on the couch, her head on my shoulder as painkillers made her drowsy. I stroked her hair, fighting the pull of old feelings mixed with fresh fear. My own mother back in Indiana would never understand two women together, especially not with one so high profile. The phone buzzed with missed calls from colleagues at the hospital, already seeing the news clips circulating online. Societal judgment loomed, but in her vulnerable whisper, Cadence said, I never stopped loving you, Harmony. I just didn't know how to fight for us until tonight. The dilemma tore at me: stay and risk everything, or walk away and leave her to face the storm alone. Morning brought the media storm headlines screaming: Vanguard CEO comes out in shocking shareholder bombshell photos of us from the meeting splashed across every site. My phone wouldn't stop ringing, friends from nursing school texting in disbelief, my supervisor leaving a voicemail about taking personal time. Cadence made breakfast in her sleek kitchen, eggs and coffee like any normal couple. But nothing about this was normal. We talked for hours, digging into the past, how her family had shipped her to boarding school after suspicions arose, how she had buried herself in work to prove she could be the perfect heir. I shared my own struggles growing up in a small conservative town where being lesbian meant whispers and isolation. The prejudice wasn't abstract, it was real. Neighbors who would cross the street, my own brother, who once said he would never speak to me again if I brought a woman home. Yet as we walked along the lakeshore that afternoon, hands linked for the first time in public, a quiet happiness bloomed. Cadence laughed at my terrible jokes, her bruises fading, and for a moment the world felt right. But the confrontation came swiftly. Her sister Elena arrived unannounced at the penthouse, eyes red from crying. "You selfish bitch," she spat at Cadence, dragging our father into an early grave with this nonsense. "He built this company for a legacy, not for you to parade some fling." Cadence stood firm, but I saw the crack in her armor, the guilt that had always haunted her. I stepped between them, my voice steady. "This isn't a fling, Elena. I love your sister, and if saving her life brought us here, then maybe it's meant to be." Elena laughed bitterly, offering me a check with more zeros than I had ever seen. Walk away and let her do what she must. The bribe burned in my hand, a test of my morals. Would I take the easy out or stand by the woman who had just upended both our worlds? That evening alone, Cadence broke down, tears streaming as she confessed the pressure had been crushing her for years. Fake dates, arranged meetings, the constant fear of losing the company, her only connection to her late father. I held her through it all, my own doubts swirling. Was I strong enough to be the wife she claimed, or was I just another sacrifice in her battle? We decided to face the board again together, but deep down I wondered if love could truly conquer the forces aligned against us. The betrayal hit like a second crash. My own colleague at the hospital, Dr. Reyes, a woman I had trusted with my shifts, leaked details to the press, twisting our story into a calculated PR stunt. Harmony, the opportunistic nurse who staged a rescue to land a wealthy wife. The article went viral with anonymous sources claiming I had followed Cadence's car that night. Cadence raged in her office, slamming files as board members called for an emergency vote on her leadership. I sat across from her, feeling the sting of doubt creep in. Had I been naive to believe this was fate? We argued for the first time since the wreck, voices rising in the empty conference room. "You should have warned me, Cadence," I shouted. "Now my career, my reputation, everything is on the line because of your impulsive declaration." She sank into a chair, head in hands. "I know, and I'm sorry, Harmony, but in that moment, with death so close, I couldn't bear another lie. If I had asked, you might have said no, and I would have lost you again." The family pressure intensified. Her mother arrived with lawyers waving prenup documents and threats of a custody battle over company shares if Cadence didn't retract. I watched Cadence stand her ground, but the toll showed in her exhausted eyes, the way she flinched at every notification. Societal backlash poured in, hateful comments, online protests outside the building from conservative groups decrying the moral decay of corporate America. In one heated phone call, my own father from Indiana disowned me, his voice cold. "You are no daughter of mine anymore." The pain was sharp, but Cadence's hand in mine steadied me. We escaped to a quiet cabin up north for a weekend, no phones, no expectations, just us talking through the night about what kind of future we could build if we survived this. The moral dilemma weighed heaviest on me. Was staying right when it cost me family and job, or was walking away the cowardice I had accused her of years ago? Back in the city, the board meeting turned ugly. Accusations flew, one member suggesting Cadence step down for the good of shareholders. She countered with data proving her vision had doubled profits, but the room was divided. I stood beside her, silent support, but inside turmoil raged. The price was mounting, and I wondered if our love was worth the wreckage it caused. The breaking point came at her family estate during what was supposed to be a reconciliation dinner. Cadence's mother had insisted on a private meeting, no press, no board, just blood ties. We arrived to find her father figure, an old uncle, and lawyers waiting. They offered Cadence full control if she annulled the marriage claim and married the approved suitor within the month. When she refused, her mother turned to me with venom in her eyes. "You think you can waltz in and steal our daughter, our legacy?" "I saved her life," I replied quietly but firmly, "and she chose me." The argument escalated, voices echoing through the marble halls. Cadence, accusing her family of emotional blackmail, me defending our right to happiness. In a moment of raw honesty, Cadence confessed to them all how she had lived in fear for decades, hiding who she was until that wreck forced her truth into the light. The sacrifice demanded of me became clear when my hospital fired me citing media distraction, though we both knew it was prejudice. I packed my things from my tiny apartment, feeling the weight of every choice. Cadence found me there, offering to buy us a new home anywhere, but I needed time to think. Our late-night talks turned deep, exploring the ethics of her bold claim. Was it love or manipulation born of desperation? She admitted the fear had driven her, but the love was real and had been waiting dormant. I forgave her slowly, but the inner conflict lingered. Could I trust a future built on such a public foundation, or would resentment eventually poison us? A final confrontation with her sister Elena at a coffee shop brought more tears and accusations, but also a glimmer of understanding, when Elena admitted her own hidden struggles with expectations. The awakening was gradual for both of us, realizing that true freedom meant facing the world together no matter the cost. Weeks blurred into a new rhythm: press conferences, joint interviews where we shared our story honestly, Cadence stepping back from daily operations to focus on us, while restructuring the board with allies who valued authenticity. I found a new role at a community clinic, helping others navigate their own hidden truths, the work grounding me amid the chaos. Our evenings became sacred, quiet dinners, walks where we planned a simple wedding far from spotlights. The betrayals and losses had stripped us bare, but in that vulnerability we found strength. Cadence no longer the closeted heir, but a woman owning her identity, and me no longer the outsider but her equal partner. Yet the scars remained: family holidays, skipped holidays, invitations declined, the occasional hateful letter, reminding us society still judged. One evening on our balcony overlooking the city, Cadence turned to me, her eyes clear. "Thank you for staying harmony through all the storms." I kissed her softly, knowing the journey had changed us both for the better. We had paid dearly, family ties fractured, careers altered, but the love that sparked in a burning wreck had bloomed into something unbreakable. In forcing the woman who saved her life into the brutal spotlight of her privileged world without warning, did Cadence commit an unforgivable betrayal of trust, or was that shocking claim the only moral act powerful enough to shatter the cages of prejudice and fear that had imprisoned them both for so long?